Good afternoon. Yesterday, when we addressed the deplorable acts committed on social media against an adult male with mental health challenges, I made a public commitment that CPD would hold the individuals in that video fully responsible for their actions. I also made it very public that we would conduct a methodical investigation based upon the facts, including whether or not this incident would be considered a hate crime. Let me be very clear. The actions in that video are reprehensible. That, along with racism, have absolutely no place in the city of Chicago or anywhere else for that matter against anyone, regardless of their race, gender, state of mental health, or any other identifying factor. There was never a question whether or not this incident qualified to be investigated as a hate crime, but as I said yesterday, we need to base the investigation based on facts and not emotion. I'm pleased to announce that the investigation has concluded and charges have been approved by the Cook County State's Attorney for hate crimes, aggravated kidnapping, aggravated unlawful restraint, and aggravated battery with a deadly weapon against all 4 of the offenders in custody. 3 of the offenders have also been charged with residential burglary, and 1 of the offenders has also been charged with robbery and possession of a stolen motor vehicle. As police officers, we took an oath to be guardians of the peace, here to protect every citizen. Because of it, the offenders in this case were apprehended due to the good police work by 11 district officers you see standing behind me. And thankfully, the victim in this incident will recover from his injuries. Now I'm going to ask Area North Detective Commander Kevin Duffin to provide the timeline of the case. Kevin.
Good afternoon. Our victim in this case was dropped off on the 31st of December by his parents at a McDonald's in Streamwood, Illinois. He was to meet his friend there, Jordan Hill, who actually ends up being one of the offenders in this case. When he was dropped off, it was under the premise that he would be spending the night with his friend, so his parents naturally didn't look for him until the next day. They then subsequently report him missing in Streamwood. He comes to Chicago. He's at the McDonald's, and Jordan Hill goes and steals a van in Streamwood. He then picks up our victim, who has no knowledge that the van is stolen. He assumed it's Jordan's. They drive to the west side of Chicago, where they basically are driving around and visiting friends for the next 2 days. The victim sleeps in the van. On the morning of the 3rd of January, they go to the address on Lexington, which is where 2 of the other 3 offenders reside, the 2 sisters. And then about several hours later, that's when they bind him and start the assault on him. He is able to escape when a downstairs neighbor calls the police complaining that of all the noise upstairs. The police respond, and the 2 female offenders now go downstairs. They're angry that the police were called. They kick in the door of that apartment. Hence, they are both charged with the burglary. That gives our victim an opportunity to get out, and then he's observed walking down the street by our 11th district officers. Officer Michael Donnelly will explain how they happened upon him.
Thank you. Donnelly, D-O-N-N-E-L-L-Y. While at our call, we observed our victim. He was walking with Jordan Mills, at which time I observed him wearing a tank top inside out backwards with jean shorts and sandals on. He was bloodied, he was battered, and due to the cold weather conditions, I approached him for a field interview, at which time, after talking to him, he didn't seem like he was very discombobulated. He was injured, he was confused, and at which time I called an ambulance. I left him with two other officers, Officer Adamski and Officer Cronin, to continue my investigation. I left him with them, which revealed that he was missing and endangered out of Streamwood, Illinois. They contacted Streamwood Police and conducted an investigation, which revealed and put the pieces of the puzzle together for what we have right now.
Okay, we'll take questions now if you have any questions.
It appears the fight on prior to him being bound, tied up, and assaulted, the victim tells us he got into a play fight with Jordan, and it escalated from there. The two female offenders then, who are obviously, I mean, you can see on video that they're smoking cigars, which we presume to be blunts. They then get aggravated at him, and that's when they tie him up, and that's the racial slurs and the the deference to his mental capacity starts coming out. That's primarily one of the reasons that they were charged with the hate crime. I believe it escalated. There was certainly no premeditation between Jordan and him when the initial fight broke out. No. They are sisters, yes. They are acquaintances. They attended a school together in Aurora at some point. I don't know if it recently, but at some point.
Did they hang out?
They have hung out occasionally before, not frequently.
When was the last?
I can't answer. I'm not sure.
And there seems to be a little.
The police are called. The two female offenders know that because apparently the downstairs neighbor came up and said, if you don't knock off the noise, I'm going to call the police. So they go downstairs. They're mad at her. They start kicking her door in, and that's when the police arrive. I believe your call was a damage to property? Criminal damage to property was the assignment. That's when he has his opportunity to get out.
About 5:15.
5:15 in the afternoon. Tuesday evening. Well, the two girls are sisters, and they're just acquaintances of the other two. No. Well, again, I mean, his diminished mental capacity, the fact that they tied him up, the obvious racial quotes on that they post live on Facebook. I mean, taken in the totality of the circumstances, the state's attorney agreed with us. I mean, we sought hate crime charges, and they agreed.
Just to be clear, was it?
It's half a dozen of one, six of the other. I can't understand why anybody puts anything on Facebook. No. I'm not exactly positive on that. The two detectives that have worked this case solid since Tuesday night, literally, I mean, passed out this morning. They were so tired. So, and I didn't want to wake them up to ask them that question before I walked in here.
There were some reports.
Yes, but I don't know the exact circumstances behind it, so I can't.
Why did the suspect say anything about
No.
More guys?
the resident?
I'm sorry?
Can you explain the resident?
When the downstairs neighbor told them, I'm going to call the police if you don't knock off all that noise, the two females came down and booted her door in, and they actually grabbed something as they were walking out. So hence, it's a forcible entry. Where a theft is concerned, it becomes a burglary. He's in his parents' custody, presumably out at his residence.
He's not from.
Crystal Lake. It appears that he was in that physical position, tied up in the corner, for about 4 or 5 hours.
Last one?
And of course, the video just shows us a small window of time. Anything else that was happening to him? I mean, we can see what's in that video, but what else has happened to him that perhaps we don't know?
Well, we have no other video, but we have the statements of the four of them. I mean, they admit that they were beating him, kicking him. They made him drink toilet water. And then obviously the video where they're cutting a piece of his scalp.
Yesterday, he said he might have been held hostage for 24 to 48 hours. Can you give us a better, solid time frame of how long he was with them?
Well, he was with Mr. Jordan from last Friday. The actual, but you have to realize the first 2 days he's with him voluntarily. He's riding around in a van that he thinks is Jordan's. It's not until they get to the apartment on Lexington, and even then it's several hours later before the fight breaks out and they tie him in. So he was with them, or at least with Jordan, since Friday, but the actual assault and kidnapping and the crimes took place over probably a 6-hour period on the 3rd.
Friday or Saturday? Parents said they hadn't seen him since Saturday.
What was New Year's Eve? Saturday. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Saturday.
All right, thanks.
Offenders live there? Did any of the offenders live in that?
The two females lived there, yes.
And then what date did you say the assault actually happened?
January 3rd.
Thanks, sir. So tomorrow, bond court's at 1 o'clock. Mug shots are online. You guys have the charges. Kevin Duffy.